According to the Department of Social Development, 1 in 5 children in South Africa are subjected to some form of abuse before the age of 18. This week marks Child Protection Week and was conceptualized to shine the light on the incidents of violence against women and children. This week is also a week to teach parents and caregivers about the responsibility of educating children about safety and to give them the necessary tools to deal with the crisis. The campaign is being led by the Minister of Social Development and encourages all South Africans to play a role in protecting our children and creating a safe and secure environment for them. To tell us more about Child Protection Week, we joined in studio now by Duduzile Skhosana, who is the Child Protection thematic lead at Save the Children. Dudu, it's really great to have you. Thanks so much for coming into Morning Live.
Thank you, Leanne. Thank you for having us.
You know, this has to be one of the most difficult conversations to have because when you look at South Africa as a country, we have got one of the highest rates when it comes to child abuse. You know, conceptualizing this week and trying to bring about awareness, does it even work?
Yeah, you can say it doesn't work, but we believe with this week we are able to touch a lot of people in the country and all over the world. So the Child Protection Week actually is one of the government's strategy to intensify awareness against this scourge of abuse against women and children. Especially this week, it marks the awareness against violence against children.
Yeah, I mean, and it is important to create awareness and for children and women, as you have incorporated women into this, to understand their rights. Yes. Because I'm not sure many do understand their rights. If you have to look and understand that, do people know their rights? People
know their rights, but I don't think we, like you are putting it, we are conceptualizing it. We know our rights and we take it like parents know their children's rights, because sometimes we, as a society, we have a tendency of taking children as property, not as human beings.
Yeah.
So we may know human rights, we quote them all the time, we do whatever we do, that it's my right to do 1, 2, 3. But as a nation, I think we don't understand children's rights.
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about the definition of violence against women and children. And when we talk about child protection and the forms of abuse, what are we referring to? I mean, what do you classify as an abuse against a child?
It's interesting that you're asking that question because we recently had a dialogue and we had a workshop with different government executives and other role players in child protection. We all define violence against children, violence as in violence, differently.
Yeah.
So violence is when you are disrespecting the rights of the next person, when you are treating the other person in a manner that is degrading and in a manner that is painful, abusive and humiliating. So violence against children is when children's rights are not being observed and respected, when children are being hurt, pain is inflicted on them, when their humanity is taken away, their dignity is taken away from them.
And that can be physical,
that can be sexual, that can be physical, and emotional abuse is the one that is go a long way undetected.
Very much so.
Yeah. So yeah. And it has the biggest impact on a growing child, on a developing child.
You know, sometimes, and I was funnily enough listening to a radio show which I was driving to work listening to, and there was somebody phoning in, and it was a parent obviously saying, "Yeah, how do you expect me to discipline my child? I won't hit a woman, but I will hit my child because I want my child to be scared of me, because I want my child to know that he mustn't do that again, and that if he does, I will hit him again. And I want him to be scared of me." Now, I was listening to this, and for me, I was getting scared of this man because I thought, wow, okay, if I don't want my children growing up being scared of me. I want them to respect me, but I don't want them to be scared of me. So where do we get that line?
Yeah. The painful thing is that we don't understand the danger of that trauma that you are inflicting on that child. Save the Children recently, we conducted a study on the social cost of violence against children, what it does to a developing human being, that small human being that is developing. You may think by inflicting that pain to make your child scared of you, you got away with it, but the danger is even bigger. Children who experience violence at an early age, they don't cope at school. You will think just because he's or she is moving from one grade to the next, it's okay. But that child could have been something better if that trauma was he or she was not subjected to that trauma. The impact of violence against children in childhood is bigger than we can imagine as society. Children who experience physical abuse, for instance, they grow up to be have mental illnesses, like they will be inflicting pain on themselves, they will be abusive themselves, they become bullies, they become murderers and abusers. Children who experience emotional and neglect, for that matter, they grow up to be all drug abuse, alcohol abuse, abusers in their growing life. So we are sitting with a bigger problem that we experience in society now because of exposing our children to all these forms of violence.
I mean, I know, sitting in a newsroom and looking at these stories every single day, for me it feels like the situation in South Africa is getting worse and worse when it comes to that of the abuse of children and women and the disregard for lives, and that people just, there doesn't seem to be accountability. From Save the Children's perspective, is it the case? Are we seeing that the abuse against women and the disrespect to our children and the abuse is getting worse? It is
scary, if I may put it that way. It's getting worse. And the reason for that is because abuse is a cycle. Those children who were abused, like in 1994, the children who were exposed in that violence that happened during that time as we were transiting to the democratic dispensation that we are in, those children, the trauma that they went through, they never got any help. That is one other thing, that we don't have psychotherapy services in the country. There's very few therapists who are able to help the victims of violence against children. There are very few therapists who are also able to help even the perpetrators of violence, because angry as we are against them, but they are sick. Yeah. You'll find we have case studies of people who are in prison who we followed, and it is evident that most of them, they are in prison for charges of rape, for charges of murder, for serious crimes. They were abused, they were neglected, and they were sexually molested as children themselves. Yeah. And they grow up and be that. And imagine the next generation that they're abusing and molesting, that generation is also going to a point where we will get the situation uncontrollable. And I think we are heading there.
And we're not breaking that cycle, and that's the problem. Dudu, thank you. I know this is a big week for you. So visit the website, www.savethechildren.org.za. You can see the work that Save the Children does. Help them in any way that you possibly can. It is Child Protection Week, and this conversation is going to be held every single day until, I don't know what, we get to the bottom of something. Duduzile Skhosana, thank you for talking to us. Keep up the amazing work that you guys are doing in protecting our children. Let's take a break. We'll see you after this.